Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. What I want to talk about right off the bat is cryptocurrency from a disappearing and vanishing perspective. Now, because something is private, discreet, allegedly untraceable, it does not mean it's a good thing. Now, you could plan on disappearing and have 20 grand to your name, and you decide to plop it into some cryptocurrency. I mean, the wallet could get hacked. You could lose your mobile phone. You could lose your login. But besides that is your funds are unstable. You could take the last 10 grand of your life and buy $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, and you could watch it shoot up to 15 grand or whatever. Next thing you know, you're, instead of planning for your future and playing it safe, you're risking your life savings. And that's not a good thing in the world of disappearing. You always want to have your access to money. And now, talking about access, I need cash right now. I'm shooting to the bank. I'm making a withdrawal. I'm using my ATM. I'm doing a wire transfer. I have multiple ways of accessing my funds, where the only way you can access your funds are by selling them. The funds come to your wallet. Then you got to liquidate from your wallet. And when you're vanished, you need access quick. And if you need to buy a plane ticket, get out of Dodge, cryptocurrency doesn't give you that good fortune. And so, my thought is I wouldn't necessarily at this point in life go that route. Another thing is Faraday bags. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but those are these bags. You stick your mobile phone in, you zipper it, and supposedly the satellites can't access your information on your mobile. And I always thought, like, well, okay, you put your phone in a bag, but what happens when you take your phone out and you use it? I mean, aren't they just accessing your phone anyway? So the same thing, it's something that's supposedly private, discreet, protects, but it only protects you half the time when it's in the bag. When you're taking it out and using it, it makes no sense. So before you use tools or disappearing tools or tools of privacy, think about the reality of whether it's functional, because functional is equally as important as discretion. I mean, what good is something if it's extremely private, but it does you no good, or if it's half private? So that's my quick story of the day, and keep it cool, and that's my story. I said that. Take care. Bye. The first pretext I ever performed was a CNA back in the mid 80s, okay? And so what this was, a CNA stood for customer name address. And phone companies had what they called CNA bureaus, and they gave each company access to it. So AT&T would call another company, say, hey, this is Pat Brown from AT&T, I need a CNA. The person in the other company say, what's the number? And so the other rep would say 212-555-1212. And then the rep in the other company would say, that belongs to Frank Ahearn, 10 Main Street. That's a CNA. Sometimes they gave you the address, sometimes they didn't, depending on the phone company. So that was the first pretext or part of a skip trace I ever performed. And that'd probably be somewhere around 1984 or 1985. Now, today we call them reverse listings. You go to a website, you type in a phone number, sometimes it comes up with information, sometimes it doesn't. But that information is just unreliable, because just because it comes up and says that phone number belongs to A, B, C, or D doesn't mean it does. It could be disconnected, the person could be dead, or it could be incorrect. So always remember, a skip tracer keeps in mind that information is only information until proven otherwise. So CNA bureaus eventually died out, and so we had to get reverse listings. And the reason somebody would need a phone number, a private detective may need to follow someone, and a husband found the phone number in the wife's wallet or vice versa, and they need to know who this person is and where they live, or a repo agent may need to go to an address, but all they have is a phone number to repo the car. or a process server may need to serve papers. So there are a lot of reasons why reverse listings and CNAs are needed in an investigation. So a skip tracer or social engineer like myself, investigators would come to me and they'd give me a phone number. And I would call into a phone company posing as, hey, this is Pat Brown from Repair Dispatch. Our systems are down. Just need you to bring up a number. I got a tech working on the line. See if it's one of ours. And sometimes it would be like, who are you? Where are you calling from? I'd be like, hey, Pat Brown, ask me again, I'll knock you down. So I would diffuse the kind of conversation, make it kind of easy. Hopefully they laughed. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. And sometimes they asked me for my ID, and I'd make it up. I'd say EC622. What did they know? Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. If they couldn't bring it up, they said, I can't bring up your ID number. I'd be like, that's because I'm the manager of dispatch and you can't access my ID. That's why. Sometimes they bought it, sometimes they didn't. If they did buy it, okay, Pat Brown, Repair Dispatch, we're down over here. Just need you to bring up a phone number. And they'd say, hey, that belongs to Kurt Dusterdick, 10 Main Street, Hamburg, New Jersey, something of that nature. Bingo, we got it. So that's how a reverse listing would work. Now, if I couldn't get it to a repair, I'd go through customer service, okay, where you'd call in about your bill, and I'd call in as, hi, this is Pat Brown from MIC, which I told them was Message Information Center, totally made up department. We're down over here. Can you bring up a customer name and address for me? Some people said yes, some people said no. Now, when I pretext, I always was fun with the person and happy and cheerful. I always believed that if I could take them away from their day, because customer service is a drag, all they do is deal with people's problems. So if I can get them on the phone and take them away from that computer, so I'd be like, yeah, I'm going away this weekend. The fellas and I are going to Jamaica, going to drink some beer, going to have a grand old time at the beach. We're renting a boat. You know, they kind of dream and they kind of get away from their day and they want to help me. They want to keep me on the line because the person they're going to speak to after me is going to be a pain. So pretext is part knowing how to go in and part personality. If I got a woman in there, talk about my daughter just had a baby. Back in my early days, I'm getting married. I'm having a bachelor party. And I would talk about that, take them away from the day. Then I'd hit them up. Hey, what name are you showing on the account? What address are you showing? Or which address? Current address? Manipulating the way I talk. That's social engineering. So that's how a reverse listing is done or a CNA is done. The first item you must think about are connections. It's all about connections, whether it be skip tracing and how to find a person, whether it be how to disappear or trying to become more private in life. Everything is about connections. Your internet connection, the hardware device that you're looking at this video, the social networks that you use, the credit cards, the banking, the mobile phone, the apps. So everything has to do with connections. So the first thing I want you to start thinking about when it comes to either finding a person or disappearing is what other connections? You know, because when I, as a skip tracer, search for a person, I don't look for them per se, okay? I look for the information they left behind and what is the connection that can bring me to where they're currently at. Or I think about who are their family or friends connections, okay? Or their job. Can I call their job and create a pretext, which is a lie to obtain information, and extract a forwarding address? Can I pretext a family member, tell them I went to college with them and just try to get in touch with them? So the idea is think about the connections, but now in this section, I'm going to focus solely on connections on how people are located. So as you're going along, think of yourself, think about what's in your wallet. You know, how can you be connected to something in your wallet? Like, I don't know, maybe you have an airline frequent flyer account that says where you've flown for the past year. If a skip tracer finds that, or you as a skip tracer find that on an individual, you may locate where they're at. You know, think about your emails, or maybe somebody you worked with, you happen to mention that, you love Fiji, you always want to live in Fiji. One day you disappear, a skip tracer contacts an employee, and they say, you know something? They always said they wanted to go to Fiji. So, connections. What are your connections? Or what are the connections of the person you are looking to find? So don't think about finding them. Focus solely on their connections. Family, friends, social, online, offline, financial, and the obscure, meaning possibly hobbies. Are they a member of the Mystery Writers of America? Do they bowl and need to be on a bowling team? You know, if you were looking for me, you just have to find the closest Starbucks to my home, and that's where you'll find me, because, you know, that's what I do. That's my connection. So let's leave this video at connections. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant and author of How to Disappear. I just want to take a moment and talk about connections, okay, or the interconnectedness of things. Now, I view the act of creating privacy or the act of disappearing as stretching connections or breaking connections or removing yourself from connections. The truth is, we live in a time where we can't delete our connections, because once the connection is made, it exists, okay? Be it using your debit card, searching the internet, sending an email, making a phone call, whatever it may be, it's a connection. And those connections lead to you, where you're going, where you've been, things of that nature. And so when people talk to me, how do I become more private when I'm disappeared, or how do I learn to think like a privacy consultant? And so I share a story called the pizza story, and it's kind of silly, but it makes sense. There's this kid who's at a school dance, and he goes and asks a girl to dance, and it turns out it's the bully's girlfriend. The bully finds out, and he's hunting the kid down. He's going to beat him with a stick. So a week goes by, all's cool. But what happens is the kid delivers pizza, and so he shows up at a house where he has to bring a pizza pie. And he goes to ring the doorbell, and he realizes this is the house of the bully. If he rings the bell and makes that connection, the bully will open the door and hit him with a stick. Don't want that to happen. He can't go back to work and tell the boss he can't deliver the pizza. He'll get fired. So what does he do? He goes down the block, he finds another teen, and he gives him a buck, says, hey, deliver the pizza, get me the money, and you can keep the tip money. So the other teen goes about it, delivers the pizza, gets the money, gives our teen back the money, he goes to work, all is cool. So the thing here is, ringing the bell is creating the connection. So when you're thinking of privacy, you have to say to yourself, if I ring that bell, is that bully going to open the door? If so, how do I ring the bell without the bully knowing it's me? So you go down the block, you find someone else. This is the idea. It's a very simple idea of just removing yourself from a connection. So, for example, if you're looking to buy prepaid phones, you don't walk into the store and buy the phone yourself, because there's an eye in the sky. You have a third party do it. You have somebody else do it. You're looking to search to move to, say, Venezuela. Use a third party company. There's plenty of sites out there that will do your internet searching for you. So the idea is to, when you want to be more private or create discretion, think about it. Think about the interconnectedness of things. If I hit enter, send, or download, or I press a button, I made a connection. So the goal is to remove yourself from the connections. And that's my story of the day. Stay cool and catch you later. Frank M. Ahearn. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant and author of How to Disappear. Just want to take a few minutes and talk about digital currency. I've been reluctant to get involved in digital currency for, partially more so for a How to Disappear perspective, meaning that it's not quickly accessible, meaning you need some cash. You go down to the bank and just pull your cash out of the bank. I mean, if you lose money, the bank loses money, your money's insured. So I have mixed feelings about cryptocurrency. And if you've been watching the news, you've been hearing about Ethereum wallet, which has some issues, serious issues at that, where about $280 million is frozen, which is not a good thing from a disappearing perspective, because these people can't touch their money, they can't withdraw it, and they're just sitting there hoping that they get it back. So not that you shouldn't indulge in cryptocurrency, but what you need to think about from a disappearing perspective is, it's a good way of, stashing money, moving money about, but it's not your getaway money. And getaway money is that cash on hand, that instant access to money. So think about, before you indulge in Bitcoin or Ethereum, the perspective of, how can I get my money quickly? What if something goes wrong? Take someone who maybe disappeared now and they put their money into Ethereum wallet. They got some problems. And a few weeks ago, I was negotiating a deal with a client and they refused to send money to my bank wire transfer. They want to do cryptocurrency. So when I was researching it, for some reason I found Ethereum easy to understand from my non-technical perspective, and I was going to basically go with them, but I chose going with Bitcoin because Bitcoin just has that trade name to it, and I don't know, it just seemed more secure for whatever reasons. And if I would have went Ethereum, I'd be working for free right now. So don't not indulge in cryptocurrency. Just be really cautious about it and just really question how quickly you can get your money when money's needed. So that's my story of the day. Be cool, stay low, and have a good day. Frank M. Ahearn. Bye. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant and author of How to Disappear. I just want to take a few minutes and talk about creating disinformation before you hit the road. Sometimes people just pick up and go and they don't think about creating disinformation. And the problem with that is they just leave the real information behind, and the person hunting you, the skip tracer, the investigator, the stalker, they're going to use the real information and they might find you. So part of the tricks of disappearing and vanishing happen to be creating disinformation. For example, before you go, you make phone calls to architectural firms. If you're an architect in Boston, look at architects online in different states, email architectural firms, things that are associated to you, but in states and cities where you'll never go. I mean, if you're a bartender, start calling bars in Miami if you're not going to Miami. This way, if somebody accesses your private records, they're going to find this bogus information, and they're going to use that as data and basically background information to track you down. So it's important that you keep this in mind. And when you're gone, you can also create disinformation. A really cool trick is to lose your wallet somewhere and have a bunch of fake information, but make sure your predator is going to find it, because then they'll use that information. So again, think about disinformation, sending the predator to a place you're never going to go. Again and again and again. Just keep up the disinformation, be cool, and stay low. Frank M. Ahearn. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn here, privacy consultant. I'm going to talk about money and disappearing, or actually earning money and disappearing. Something you need to really think about before you disappear is, how will you earn money? Now, if you don't need to earn money and you have buckets full of dough, you need to think about how will you extract that money or get to that money without being traced. Now, none of this is to be misconstrued as like tax evasion or anything like that. The idea here is how you'll earn money and you'll make a living to avoid being traced by your predator, your stalker, or the person looking to kill you. You can't be Joe the bus driver in London and go be Joe the bus driver in Manchester. Why? Number one, you'll be traced by your driver's license. And number two, you'll be traced by your tax payments. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, how can somebody locate my tax payments? Simple. Social engineers can pretext Social Security, no problem. It's illegal, but just because something's illegal, that does not mean your predator or your stalker is not going to pick up the phone and try to access that information. Or they might have a cousin who works for the tax department, whatever it may be. When you're disappearing or plan to disappear, you have to assume that your predator will pull anything and everything on you, legal and illegal. So you always have to be prepared in that sense. What a lot of individuals are doing is thinking about how they can create an online business, something that's not bricks and mortar, whatever, selling something online or deriving their income from an an internet-based business, because you could have that website hosted in Singapore, you could have your PayPal payments in the UK, and it goes to a UK bank, and then you could pull that money out in a different way. So the idea is that when you're working, your predator has no idea where you're physically working. All they know, or if they do find out that you have this online business, what you're doing is you're moving the money around to avoid them locating where you're physically located. Because again, being disappeared is about being a virtual entity where you have no connections to anything physical. So think about how you're going to earn money. A lot of times people will work in the black in Europe. That's what they call it, working in the black, off the books. They'll get a job as a waiter, a waitress, a housekeeper, whatever it may be. Now, that doesn't mean they don't pay their taxes. It just means that they're working in a position where they're paid cash. So, keep that in mind. What some people do is if they go offshore and live in another country, they'll get residence there and they'll pay taxes to that country, as well as they'll file in their original country. But it's a lot more difficult to find someone who is paying taxes to, a country like Belize or Portugal or, Mexico or something like that. The idea is you always want to separate yourself from your income or separate yourself from your money, because people are traced that way. Now, if you do have a business, an online business, you have to be careful how you derive that money, because if I locate your online business, that's the first thing I'm thinking. I mean, who's your credit card processor? Are you using PayPal? Are you using Skrill? What are you using? How are you getting your money? And so think about that. So before you disappear, say to yourself, how can I earn money? And how can I earn money without my predator finding me? So that's my story of the day. My name is Frank M. Ahearn. I am a privacy consultant. And keep cool and keep low. Later. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant. I'm going to talk about the 15-minute how to disappear. Now, this is a field manual I've been working on, kind of like a hip pocket notebook of how to disappear. So what I've been doing is just gathering the key elements, strategies, tactics, and things to know about disappearing. Now, technology changes all the time. The laws change all the time. Tricks, gimmicks, disinformation, how to travel. There's always this change in our society because of technology, okay? But there are key elements that always remain the same when it comes to disappearing. A is planning. How do you get from point A to point B? And the trick is you need to have a point A to B and then another B. And what I mean by that is, you can't just pick up and go from New York to LA if you're disappearing in LA. You need to get there in a discrete fashion. So the 15-minute how to disappear tells you or provides examples of how to create deception or travel deceptively. It also talks about how to create, quick deception to fool your predator. I also talk about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and, those things. And I still have mixed feelings about them because I think it's just a volatile place to put your money, because you can have $1 million this morning and $700,000 by the end of the day. The other problem is you can't access your funds really quick when it comes to digital currency, where if you have an ATM debit card or you have a bank down the corner, you can walk in and pull out some cash. So there are certain elements to disappearing and vanishing that stay the same. So what I've done is I've collected the most important things, and it's pretty much an easy read, and I think it's probably one of the most helpful or the most structured or get to the point how to disappear writing I've done in a long time. So if you're interested, you can go to my website and pre-order. It'll be available sometime at the end of March. And that is the 15-minute how to disappear. And catch you later and be cool. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant. I just want to talk about going temporary but thinking permanent. One of the mistakes people do when they plan their disappearance is they just think one place as the end all. And they think get from point A to point B and they're set. I think that's a mistake. I think what you need to do is plan the city you're going to. Say you're living in New York and you want to disappear to, say, the Cayman Islands or to Fiji. You basically plan to be there for, say, 3 months. You want to make sure you can acclimate, be at a place with a different language. You want to make sure you can get some sort of correct legal status so you're not, ejected from the country for some reason. You want to make sure you can earn a living. You want to make sure you have proper health care if you have particular health issues. So what I suggest my clients do is locate a place, be it like an Airbnb or a temporary 3-month rental. Rent it using a prepaid debit card. A lot of those places, when you show up, they don't ask for your identification. So you can just walk right into an Airbnb, or you can walk into a other type of direct rental and not flash your passport because you've prepaid using an online system. So make sure when you book the place for 2 or 3 months temporarily, you just do it with a internet connection not connected to you, a prepaid debit card that has no connection to you. So here's what you do. You then book that location, you're there for 3 months, and you start thinking about, is this the place you want to be? So while you're there, you're living temporary, but you're thinking long term. Can you earn a living again? Can you maintain banking? Does that country have a safe banking system? What's the tax situation? What's your legal status? What happens if you lose all your money? Can you survive there? So go temporary, but think long term. And my name is Frank Ahearn. I'm a privacy consultant, author of How to Disappear, and have a great day and stay cool and stay low. Going in as. When I first started skip tracing and throughout the years, one of the things before the pretext was, how was I going to go in as, or who was I going to go in as? Am I going to go in as the person, the subject, and pose as them? Or am I going to go in as somebody of the company? Now, some pretexts, you can only go in as the person. Some pretexts, you can only go in as a person who works in the corporation. Now, when I was pretexting mobile phone companies, it was pretty easy, okay? Because I would call a mobile carrier and say, hi, how you doing? This is Pat Brown from Mobile Billing. We're down, just need you to bring up an account. And the rep would be, bring up anything I needed, no matter what I wanted. But then when they started getting a little tough and, more customer service like and protection of privacy, things got a little difficult. So what we did was we'd call a mobile phone store and just switched it up. And I'd call the mobile phone store and say, hey, how you doing? This is Pat Brown. I'm calling from such and such division of such and such company. Want to see if you guys did a new order. Here's the person's name. Here's identification information. And the person at the store would be, yeah, we have this, 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 and this. So pretext is about knowing who you're going in as and who you are. Are you the customer? Are you an employee of the company? So those are the 2 ways you can go into a company, or the ways I did in the past. Remember, don't break the law. Hey, Frank Ahearn, privacy consultant. I want to talk about how to disappear / detect or counter surveillance. Now, when you first plan your disappearance, you need to stop everything, okay? That's how to disappear / stop, okay? Because you've created a boatload of footprints. Disappearing begins with a dream, or wondering what it's like, or how much it costs to live in Lisbon, or what airfare is to a particular city, or how to open a bank account in Germany. So the initial disappearing part is always that dream or that initial research, and typically it's done from the home, work, or the mobile phone, and you've created a bunch of footprints, and those footprints will bring you down. But if you want to learn more about how to disappear stop, look up the How to Disappear Stop video. So I want to talk about how to disappear, detect, or counter surveillance. Now, when you plan your disappearance, or as you start moving along after you stop everything, you have to think about your world, okay? What's happening in your physical space? I mean, Is your mobile phone cloned? Is there keystroke software on your computer or laptop? I mean, is the room you're in bugged? I mean, what about your car? Is there a GPS tracking device? What you need to do is you need to assume that everything about your world is compromised, okay? And you need to start fresh. You need a clean phone, you need a clean laptop, you need prepaid mobile phones, maybe I just said that, prepaid debit cards. So you want to start gathering things that have no connection to your old life, okay? The keyword connections, okay? So you can't operate and plan your disappearance in your home, okay? Because especially if you live with your predator, because you don't know what kind of access they have. I mean, if you're in an abusive situation, you need to get out of your house and go elsewhere. But the thing is, you can't jump in your car and drive to an internet cafe because there could be GPS in your car. You can't hold your everyday mobile phone in your bag and go to that internet cafe or to your friend's house because of the tracking devices. So you have to leave all your hardware, let's call it, behind. So the strategy is to say, okay, I'm going to do some searching today. I'm going to hop in my car. I'm going to drive to the mall. I'm going to leave my phone and anything that has an on and off switch in my car. I'm going to get out of my car. I'm going to walk through the mall, and I'm either going to hop in a taxi, pay cash, or I'm going to walk for 15 blocks and find a place to surf. Internet cafes are not always the safest place because they keep records of everything, okay? But let's say you have a mail drop and you stash your computer in there, or you stash your mobile phone in there. You go to the mail drop, you open it up, take out your smartphone, you go somewhere, you sit down, you do your searching on that, you do what you need to do, you go back to the mail drop, you leave your phone behind. You walk back to your car, you jump in your car, you go home. From a digital tracking perspective, it looks like you spent the day in the mall. As simple as that. So, when you plan your disappearance, think about your environment. The eye in the sky, perhaps a bug in the room that you don't hear. If you're driving in your car, don't be on the phone talking to somebody about disappearing to, God knows where, because your car could be bugged. So you have to operate that everything is compromised, that everything about you is known. So the trick is to be smarter than your predator, okay? And to think before you do. So that means don't take any chances. But on your laptop at home and your regular mobile phone, what you can do is search places online you're never going to go and use it as disinformation. Assume your car has a GPS tracking device, drive to places and park in front of a bank, okay? Go to an apartment building that has a complex that has nothing to do with you. It may appear that from the GPS device, they're going to wonder, why did you go to that bank? Why did you go to that building? What's going on with you? So what you want to do is use the potential intrusion as disinformation. And it's kind of the story of the day. Just to let you know, I'm writing a book called The 15-Minute How to Disappear. And it's almost like a pocket manual of disappearing, something you have in your pocket. It's quick reference. It's not a bunch of stories. It's straight to the point, how-tos. And the how-tos are about, cryptocurrency, new identities, fake identities, disinformation, and more so modern and up-to-date information about disappearing. And it's a rather easy read. So you can pre-order it on Amazon if you like. That's my story. Be cool and be low. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn here, privacy consultant. The other day I posted a video called Go Temporary But Think Long Term, okay? And the idea of that video was when you leave your world behind and you go to your destination city, you stay there just for say 2 months, or you rent a place temporarily for 2 months and you make sure it's the place you want to be, make sure it's the place you can acclimate in, make a live in. It's the place where you can do what you got to do to have a life. Now, in addition to the idea of going temporary but thinking long term, is also going and getting a buffer city. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say you live in New York and you're going to disappear to, say, Los Angeles. The idea is, pick a midway city like Kansas or St. Louis or, somewhere, and you go there, you hang out for, say, a month, 2 months, and you use that time to look backwards and say to yourself, did I leave any footprints that can lead to Los Angeles? Did I do anything stupid? Did I tell somebody the wrong information? Is Los Angeles safe? Am I 100% sure that this is the location that's going to work for me? Am I 100% sure that everything I did is in the past and it will not come to my future? Now, when I talk about having a buffer city or going to your new city and just kind of, temporarily renting a place for 2 or 3 months, I mentioned, use Airbnb. Now, someone emailed me and said Airbnb wants photo identification, which is absolutely right. And just 2 things about that. One, when I say like Airbnb or I use specific company names, I'm just using them as an example because a lot of my audience come from other countries and they may not understand the term sublet. So if I mention something, think a little broader and just realize that I'm just using a company name. But that's not to say you can't use Airbnb, that someone you trust can't rent it for you. And you just show up first and say, your friend's coming later, their airplane was delayed. Simple as that. There's always an answer to the disappear problem. So think about a buffer city, okay? And you get to that buffer city, look backwards, okay? Did you do any phone calls? Did you send any emails? Did you tell a neighbor? What did you do? The buffer city is the place that answers all your questions. And in that buffer city, if there's one mistake, or if you feel uncomfortable, or you feel like you've done something wrong, you can't go to LA. You got to figure it out. So that's my story for today, and hopefully some of this information is helpful. And have a great day, and stay cool and stay low. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant, disappear expert, and skip tracer who locates people who do not want to be found. So what's all this jazz with Facebook? I mean, people are shocked that Cambridge Analytics pulled, all this data. I mean, isn't Facebook basically about taking your data and doing what they want with your data? I mean, if you contribute to a website, a social site, a database site, a telemarketer, and you give them your information, they're going to take it. They're going to use it. They're not going to respect it. And they're going to make money off of it. It's like we're like non-paid actors in a movie. We're just extras. And they do with our image, our history, our tracking, our choices, what they want. So you can't disappear from Facebook because the damage is already done. Here's what I would do if I was you, if you want to disappear from Facebook, is deviate the information. Start giving fake information to Facebook. I mean, there are these websites out there now and these journalists, and they're talking about, oh, just delete your Facebook page. It doesn't do anything. It's already there. My suggestion is keep your Facebook page and start changing your information. If you live in Chicago, say you moved to Boston, tell them you're divorced, okay? Start liking things that you don't like, okay? Start adding friends that aren't your friends, okay? Start posting information and news articles that you don't agree with. Why not just destroy your online Facebook information? Ask your friends and family who you're connected with to delete your photos, okay? To start unfriending your friends and friend people who aren't your friend. Start turning your information into bad soup. I mean, it's unfair. Well, I shouldn't say it's unfair. I mean, you read the terms of service, they're going to use your information. I mean, every app you download, they want something. There's nothing free in this society, especially services. And your information is the gold. And I mean, Facebook is worth billions, and they're worth billions because of people who indulge and people who engage. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem right. it seems over the top. And to allow access, other companies to access your information, it's pretty screwed up. So don't disappear from Facebook, deviate, mess with them, start giving them garbage information because they don't deserve the real information. And so, I mean, if you have 2 kids, tell them you got 4 kids. Give them names, give them fake names. You know, change your job, give them a fake job. So maybe it's time you get back at Facebook. Simple as that. It's my story of the day, and stay cool and stay low. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. The other day I posted a video about, I was down in Portugal and I met Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War. We were having some like coffee and donuts. And he asked me if the art of war is relevant in the digital age, okay? Or can it be used in the world of privacy and vanishing? So when I explained to him that, you know, people will read The Art of War because they want to kind of hone their warrior skills and, you know, in whatever industry they happen to be in, okay? And I think from a praise point of view, somebody who's disappeared or, you know, on the run, the art of war can be used to think about their actions, of the actions of their predator, okay? Because there's a line in the art of war, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting, okay? Now, that tells me that your predator is not looking to go face to face with you and necessarily in the sense of hunting you to capture you, or they might use trickery. For example, they might decide to put an obituary online and you find it. It's of a relative. It might tempt you to go back home. So, but you as the prey, always avoid a place where a fight can occur. And if going back home, you're going to fight for your freedom, you don't want to go back home. So that's how you'd use something in the art of war. The other thing is a good commander is benevolent and unconcerned with fame. What that means is once you are out of Dodge, you just don't go back, okay? You don't start looking for your name online. You don't start reviewing information about you, reading newspapers about how you vanished, okay? You want to go and stay gone, okay? So what I'm telling you, again, is when you read The Art of War, look at it from the perspective of somebody who's being pursued and how you could use that information as a tool to keep you away from things or to keep you from putting yourself in positions that can jeopardize your freedom, because vanishing is all about freedom. You know, there's another line, the greatest victory is that which requires no battle, okay? From your perspective, okay, if you could be in a situation where you don't have to face your predator, or you don't have to face resistance in your journey, and you can live in a place where you don't have to worry about who's going to bang on your door, or if you can travel freely and not be stopped. So you need to think about your world, where you can go and how you can do it without battling, because it's all about freedom, okay? And if you go into battle, you may lose the battle, and losing the battle's losing freedom. So that's really what I want to say about Sun Tzu and The Art of War, because, you know, I find The Art of War a good book, as I said in the other video, but I think sometimes people read it and they don't really understand it, or they don't understand how it can apply to their own life. They think they got to follow it A, B, C, and D. Don't do that. Find your way and think about how it's useful to you. And that's my story. Have a great day, and hopefully 2018 is a great year. And catch you later. Stay cool and stay low. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. Recently, I was down in Portimao, Portugal, and I met this guy. He's a writer, and his name is Sun Tzu. You may have heard of him. He wrote The Art of War, a pretty popular book, a book that has been kind of used in various markets: The Art of War of Business, The Art of War of Fishing, The Art of War of Self-Help, The Art of War of Space Science. Who knows? It's just been saturated in all these different industries. And, you know, I always had this idea that I'd write a book about the art of war and disappearing or something like that, but it just never really happened. But when we were talking, Sun Tzu asked me, he says, hey, is there any relevance to my book in the digital age, or is there any relevance to the art of war and privacy, or in disappearing? And I explained to him that yes and no. Okay, not so much from the perspective of, follow this and you'll be private, or use these ideas of war and it'll help you maintain your privacy or being disappeared in the digital age. Now, the interesting thing is, I do like The Art of War. It's a great book, but I look at it from a different perspective. I look at it more so that this is what the predator would do to me, not so much what I would use the tools to help me disappear or be more private. For example, there's the statement in the book, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. Okay? Ridiculous. No matter how much you know your enemy, you gotta fear the battle of freedom, because disappearing is all about freedom. And the idea to not fear your predator is complacency. Okay, you always have to imagine they're one step behind you. So, you can't take a statement like that that's from like X amount of thousands of years ago and apply it today and think, oh, this makes sense. So if you read The Art of War, which I do suggest you do read, think about it from a different perspective, as if you are the prey and you're reading about your predator and how your predator would use information in The Art of War to capture you. And then there's one, secret operations are essential in war. Now, listen, you're disappeared, it's all secret, but it's not relevant in the sense that this helps you. What you want to think about is, what secret things are your predator doing? Okay? What are they doing behind your back? So that's kind of like the idea of how you should utilize or look at The Art of War when you're reading it. Not so much from the perspective that, this is a treatise that's going to help you disappear and come up with disappearing or privacy tools. No, this is something to view how your predator would capture you. So that's my story of the day. This guy Sun Tzu is very cool, and I'm going to meet him again next month. I'm going to talk further about the book. So that's pretty much The Art of War in the digital age. And my name is Frank M. Ahearn, and have a great day, and stay cool and stay low. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant. Today I want to talk about a few things, okay? I'm going to talk about an online class that I'm doing, and it's called Playing Hide and Seek in the Digital World, and it encompasses two things: how to disappear and how to find people. But it starts off with how you can find people through databases, Facebook, online information, search engines, social engineering, pretext. Because in order to understand how to disappear, you need to understand how people hunt, okay, and how people are located. So my online class is starting in May, and it goes over a whole world of information, how to disappear, how to use offshore banks, the realities of using fake identities, new identities, how to create digital disinformation to make it look like you're living in Belize, but you're really living in Lisbon, somewhere like that. So the online class will have 2 to 3 postings a day of information, and it'll have a weekly 2-hour discussion online. Plus, it gives you 15 minutes time of chatting with me personally, whether it be online, on the phone, or via email, whatever's best for you. So the online class will tell you everything you need to know about how to find people, how to social engineer, and how to disappear. And so that's my story for that. In addition, with the class, I wrote 2 books, okay? The first one is the 15-minute skip tracer, and that talks about social engineering, talks about how to use Facebook to hunt people down, how to create bogus websites and pretext people to locate where they live or extract a particular type of information from them. And it also talks about how to use databases, busting through the addresses, busting through the phone numbers, and also how to pretext family and friends of the person you're looking for in order to get a current physical address or contact information. So, and that's the 15-minute skip tracer, and that's available online. And I'm soon to be coming out with the 15-minute How to Disappear, which is kind of like a pocket manual you can carry around with you. You could read it really quick, and it just lists the most important things about disappearing, about stopping everything you're doing because you've created a ton of traces the minute you thought about disappearing. It talks about how to create digital disinformation, meaning create information to make it look like you disappeared in Belize, but you really disappeared in Lisbon. There's also how to offshore bank, how to use prepaid tools, how to buy prepaid tools without being connected to your own identity. Then there is new identities, fake identities. I might have said that, I'm not sure. And how to live offshore, offshore banks, offshore corporations, and basically how to exist as a disappeared person, okay? And so here we have the online class, which deals with everything, very detailed, and we have the 15-minute skip tracer available now on Amazon, and coming next month, we have the 15-minute How to Disappear. And that's my story. Check out my website for everything you want to know, and that's www.disappear.info. And you can find information about my books and my upcoming class. Catch you later and stay low. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant, author of How to Disappear. I'm going to take a few minutes and discuss some disappearing strategies. Now, the first thing I always tell people when they want to disappear, or they're planning to disappear, or they're in the process of disappearing, is to stop everything, because most likely they've created a ton of footprints. Now, those footprints come from your home computer, your work computer, your mobile phone, those internet connections, your mother's house. Disappearing starts with a dream or something catastrophic or something scary happens and you think you got to get out of Dodge. So what you do is you go home, you type in How to Disappear, or you pick up your mobile, your tablet, you type, apartments to rent in Lisbon, Berlin, Chicago, Philadelphia, airline tickets to Fiji, whatever it may be. The problem is those footprints are never going away. Eventually down the road you can use them to combat information as deception, but we'll get to that in another point. So you need to backtrack and think about every place you searched and realize you can't go there. It's burned. So what do? What's the first step after that, or the next step? The next step is to figure out how to search your disappear land without creating connections. And what I mean creating connections that can be connected to you. When you surf the net in your home, it's connected to you. But what you want to do is go out, get a couple of prepaid mobile phones, get a computer you never used. You want to get some prepaid credit cards. Now the thing is, prepaid and cash doesn't make you anonymous, okay? Because when you walked into that store, there was an eye in the sky, and it basically recorded the whole transaction. So your face, you're physically connected and digitally connected to those devices. The trick is to find somebody on the street and have them go into the store and buy those products for you. And when you make the transaction with them, you make sure there's no eye in the sky watching you. So once you have your tools, what you need to do is find a place, a location, an internet connection or a prepaid connection where nobody can capture you, nobody can videotape you surfing, or what you're surfing is not being picked up by a connection that could be traced to you. See, the idea of disappearing is about removing yourself from connections or stretching connections as much as possible. There's a fictional private detective by the name of Dirk Gently, and he believes in the interconnectedness of all things. I do too. Everything is connected. Therefore, when you disappear, you want to stretch the connections as far as possible. If you can remove yourself from the connection, even better. So, step one, stop everything and backtrack. You cannot go to those places. Step two, get some prepaid tools, a clean computer, and find a location where you can search. Now, number three, the reality of disappearing is you need to be able to afford where you're going. You can't be Joe the bus driver in London and be Joe the bus driver in Manchester, England, because you'll be busted or captured or discovered by your predator based on your license. So you need to think about what you could do for a living in your newfound place. You know, a lot of people, if you don't have a lot of cash, a lot of people work in the black. They'll work as waiters, waitresses, garden people, housekeepers, handymen, whatever it may be. It's the tricky part to disappearing. It's the survival aspect. So that's my story for today. You know, keep it cool, keep it low. And my name is Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant. And, you know, I'll have more coming. Have a great day. Thanks. How to pretext and social engineer. I always say that pretext and social engineering and skip tracing is an art. It's not a science, okay? It's not brain surgery either. I mean, it's manipulation, no doubt about that. It's devious, it's creating deception. But, you know, in what I do, I look at it as like positive deception because I do help people. I put people together and I locate bad people and things of that nature. But that's a whole other story. I want to talk about how to pretext, and not meaning like how do you get information from the phone company or, you know, the credit card company, but more so on the phone. The trick is to, and I've mentioned this before, is to take someone away from their day. Most customer service people are the people you're going to be pretexting, or that people have pretexted in the past, okay? So the trick is they speak to the same people every day, same types of conversation. It's very rote. When you get them on the phone, the trick is, hey, how you doing? What's going on? How's your day going? You busy? You know, how was your weekend? Any plans next weekend? So the trick is to take them away from what they're doing, to not think about that customer service self. Think about next weekend, what they did over the weekend, what they're going to do tonight after they finish work. It's all about schmoozing. You know, if you're talking to an older woman and you're in your 20s, hey, yeah, I'm getting married next month. My soon-to-be wife's a beautiful woman. We're going to the Cayman Islands on our honeymoon, or, you know, you switch it up. If it's a young guy, oh man, I'm going surfing with the fellas. We're going to have a great time. Funny story though. If you're going to tell a story, make sure you know what you're talking about. Because one time I was pretexting this guy in really important information, and I'm telling him I'm going surfing. And he goes, longboard, shortboard? And I was stuck. I said, shortboard. And he starts asking me all these questions about surfing, which I knew nothing about. And I almost blew the pretext. I said, look, you know, I've only been surfing a couple of times, so you're asking me things I just don't know. And then what happened was the conversation changed. He started giving me suggestions about surfing, which I ate up. So be yourself when you're pretexting someone, okay? And there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. So if you're pretexting someone directly, doing a ruse on them and trying to extract information from them, okay, same thing. You know, identify with them. Hey, how you doing? This is so-and-so from such and such company. I just need to ask you a few questions. Sorry, but our computer's down. If they ask you a question, I don't know. You know, when I pretext someone, I don't use spoof card, or I don't change my phone number. I always call from a blocked number, which down the road I'm going to talk about spoof card and the different things that are used, that skip tracers use to manipulate their phone number. People say to me, how come your number is blocked? And I'm like, I don't know. I just started working here. If you want, my supervisor on the phone. And typically they're like, no, it's okay. You know, or someone will ask me a question. Aren't you guys located in Akron? I'm like, well, we just opened up a satellite office in Georgia, so I don't know about Akron. So there's nothing wrong in a pretext of saying, I don't know. When I hired skip tracers in the past, they always felt like they had to have the answers. And I'd be like, ease up. You're just an employee, it's just like the rest of them. So when you think about pretexting, know what you're going to say before you get on the phone, know how you're going to say it, and know what your objective is. What is it you want from this person or this company? And that's the key. So say the things you need to say to get that, but don't be a robot or a corporate fool. Just be who you are. And that's pretext. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. What I want to talk about right off the bat is cryptocurrency from a disappearing and vanishing perspective. Now, because something is private, discreet, allegedly untraceable, it does not mean it's a good thing. Now, you could plan on disappearing and have 20 grand to your name, and you decide to plop it into some cryptocurrency. I mean, the wallet could get hacked. You could lose your mobile phone. You could lose your login. But besides that is your funds are unstable. You could take the last 10 grand of your life and, buy $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, and you could watch it shoot up to, 15 grand or whatever. Next thing you know, instead of planning for your future and playing it safe, you're risking your life savings. And that's not a good thing in the world of disappearing. You always want to have your access to money. And now, talking about access, I need cash right now. I'm shooting to the bank. I'm making a withdrawal. I'm using my ATM. I'm doing a wire transfer. I have multiple ways of accessing my funds, where the only way you can access your funds are by selling them. The funds come to your wallet. Then you got to liquidate from your wallet. And when you're vanished, you need access quick. And if you need to buy a plane ticket, get out of Dodge, cryptocurrency doesn't give you that good fortune. And so, my thought is I wouldn't necessarily at this point in life go that route. Another thing is Faraday bags. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but those are these bags. You stick your mobile phone in, you zipper it, and supposedly the satellites can't access your information on your mobile. And I always thought, well, okay, you put your phone in the bag, but what happens when you take your phone out and you use it? I mean, aren't they just accessing your phone anyway? So the same thing, it's something that's supposedly private, discreet, protects, but it only protects you half the time when it's in the bag. When you're taking it out and using it, it makes no sense. So before you use tools or disappearing tools or tools of privacy, think about the reality of whether it's functional, because functional is equally as important as discretion. I mean, what good is something if it's extremely private, but it does you no good, or if it's half private? So that's my quick story of the day, and keep it cool, and that's my story. I said that. Take care. Bye. Asset searches, locating a person's assets, bank accounts, stock accounts. I hate doing this stuff. It was always a grind, okay? The biggest problem was not so much searching for the subject's information, but the client. Because you'd search for a person's assets, and they may not have any assets or money. The client never wanted to hear that. The other problem too, when you were searching for assets in the day, sometimes you're just throwing a dart out there. You're looking for it here, you're looking for it there. There's no one way of locating assets, okay? Unless you got some deep contact in government or law enforcement who has access to certain databases. But, I'm talking for the common man here, for the skip tracer, the private detective. Plus, pretexting banks or posing as somebody from a financial institution, totally illegal. Do not do it. So when I was doing it, there was no law against it. I mean, let me just backtrack a second. I mean, you can still hunt for people's assets. It depends on how you hunt for them. So there's a difference. What I used to do is, back in the day, people either banked where they worked or where they lived. That was it. And they had these huge books called Polk's directories, like this big. And so it listed every bank and every branch in the United States, okay? So I'd find out where you live, find out where you work, and I would hit the branches. And I would just do a very simple pretext. Hi, my name is Joe Blow. I think I'm overdrawn. Can you check my account for me? The person on the end of the phone would say, well, what's your account number? Geez, I'm at the airport. I don't have my checkbook. Can I give you my name and social security number? Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. Now, that's what skip tracing is. It's chipping away at the stone. If it didn't work in that branch, I'd go to the next branch and try the same pretext. I'd go in as the person and I'd ask, I'm going on holiday, just want to make sure I'm not overdrawn. Listen, I can't find my checkbook right now, just need to know my balance if some checks came in. So I would just create different stories. And that's really, social engineering is no brain, it's not brain surgery or anything like that. It's just, why would this person give me the information? I have to come up with an idea, create an idea. Same thing when it came to credit cards back then. I'd call credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and whoever, and I'd be, hi, how you doing? My name is Joe Blow, and I can't find my card at the moment. I'm at work, and I just want to know, when my next bill is coming out. What's your account number? Well, I don't have my card with me. I don't have a bill. Can you guys just check? Because my wife is down in Florida, and I just want to make sure that the card is good. Some reps were sympathetic, some weren't. Okay? So the sympathy comes from how I present the situation. My wife's down in Florida. She took the kid down there. She's having a great time, but shit, man, I just want to make sure, the card's good. There's no problems with it. Can you just check for me? Some people said yes. Some people said no. So skip tracing is always about, and pretexting, I should say, is always about every no leads to a yes. Okay? You just hang up, you get back on the phone, and you pick up the phone and call the next person. That's what it is. So asset locating was posing as the individual and just having somebody hear your story. Now, there are other ways to pretext, or the other ways I pretext banks, posing as a bank employee, which I'm going to get into at different points, okay? But again, listen, what I'm telling you is just more so from the perspective so you understand how somebody will hunt you down and somebody will find you. So you don't want to be pretexting banks, okay? Or you don't want to call somebody posing as a credit card company. So it's a no-no. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. Lately, I've been talking about the 9 principles of vanishing. Previously, I've mentioned ascertain, accept, and act. These are things you should do before you pick up and disappear. The truth is, there are no 9 principles of vanishing. And the reason I say that, or the reason why I introduced that is, there's a lot of books online. After I wrote How to Disappear, a slew of disappear books came out, and I breezed through a lot of them, read some, breezed through. And the problem is, there are all these formulaic ways of disappearing, and, the derivatives of how to disappear, and, they're A to B to C to D. And the truth is, when it comes to vanishing, there is no one way of doing it, and no one book is going to tell you how to vanish forever. I mean, you might pick up some tidbits here and there, but the truth of the matter is, you planning your privacy and planning your disappearance need to figure out what works for you. And the idea that I introduced 9 principles of vanishing is just mumbo jumbo, okay? It's not really going to help you in your cause. Now, that's not to say that information you find in books is not realistic. What it is to say is that the idea of self-help that, give you information like the 5 principles of this, or, the 10 best ways to vanish or disappear, or, 9 keys to privacy, it's a load of crap, okay? If you want to disappear and vanish properly, okay, you need to educate yourself on you and who you are, okay, and what your means are, what you need, okay, what you need to do to get out of your situation. And also, you need to look at your flaws. Who are you as a person, okay? Because you can't be, Johnny Dickhead in Miami and then disappear to Belgium and be Johnny Dickhead in Belgium. Why? Because your dickheadedness will catch up with you. So sometimes you need to look internally about you. What's going on with you? What's going on in your life? Why do you need to disappear? Is there something about you that brought you to this precipice? And if so, that's something you need to think about. So, the 9 principles of vanishing, or the idea of 9 principles of vanishing, were to just introduce these structures to you, okay? And that's what a lot of books do. They introduce these structures, okay? You need to delete all your footprints. You need to get an offshore bank account. You need to wear a mustache and glasses. They tell you all this extraneous stuff, but none of them talk about you and your faults and what you need to figure out about you. So what I want you to think about is not so much the tools of vanishing or the tools of disappearing, because disappearing is like relocating. It's going from A to B. The only difference is you just want to make sure nobody can find you in B. So think more so about you and what your space is in the world or in this new world, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're banking offshore or using a prepaid debit card, because if you're making the same old mistakes from the past, it's just going to catch up with you. So there are no 9 principles to vanishing. Even my book, How to Disappear, erase your digital footprints and vanish without a trace. I was not happy about that title. I just wanted How to Disappear. But the publishers were like, no, you need a subtitle, you need a promise and all this crap. And I'm thinking, but you can't delete your digital footprints and nobody can vanish without a trace. But I had no say in this. So a lot of times when you're looking to research online, you're looking for books, it's the titles that catch you. Now, and most of those titles make promises that just don't happen, okay? Because we live in a world all about interconnectedness, okay? If you do A, it's somehow connected to B. And so the 9 principles of vanishing are not going to teach you that. What's going to teach you is your actions, what you do daily, how you interact with the world around you. And so before you buy books, before you take advice from even someone like me, think the information through and ask yourself, does it apply to you? Okay, does this make sense? I mean, there's a wiki page about disappearing, and it's like the stupidest thing in the world. This guy talks about putting a thumbtack in your shoe and walking funny, and there are books out there, how to get a new identity. Okay, you buy a new identity, you don't know what you're buying. I mean, you could be buying an identity that belongs to 10 people, or you could be buying an identity where the ID number is not valid. What do? You wait till you get pulled over by a cop driving and they check the ID? Or do you wait to go through customs and try to flash a passport? I mean, that's just going to get you locked up. That's not disappearing. Disappearing is always about freedom, okay? It's about waking up in the morning and not allowing the past to catch up with you. And it's about being a sovereign individual to a degree. It's a zen. It's building a new life. It's building a protected life. It's moving forward. It's not starting your new life with breaking the law and, offshore banking illegally or getting a fake identification. So my purpose in this whole 9 principles of vanishing was to kind of just lead you in and now just introduce the idea that don't believe in the formulas, believe in you, okay? Pick and choose, don't believe in the titles of the book, don't believe in the subtitles, don't believe in the promises. And that's my story. Have a good day. The no-brainer rule. When I first started skip tracing and a client sent over a trace, the first thing I did was call directory systems. I wanted to know if that person had a published number or a non-published number. And I can't tell you how many times a client sent over information and the person happened to be at that location with a published number, and I confirmed that they were there. So when a skip trace comes in, or if you're searching for someone, don't overthink it. First, just stop and think to yourself, no-brainer. What's the no-brainer? You pop the person's name in Google, you pop their name into white pages, because in white pages, you might find a current address and a current phone number. In Google, you could find a LinkedIn account that has their current employment. You could find their Facebook page, which lists what city they live in and possible employment. So don't automatically assume that the trace you have in front of you, is like the Maltese Falcon or something like that. And it's a huge mistake that I've seen over the years where clients send me, Frank, I got the hard one. And, I pop the person's name in Google and what do I find? I find their blog. Their blog talks about a restaurant down the block from their house. So you never know what you're going to find. So step one, it's a no-brainer. Google, white pages, and if you happen to have a database that lists a couple of their phone numbers, dial the first two numbers. You might get a hit automatically. So if you get a hit on the phone number, this is how the pretext is. Hey, this is Pat Brown. I'm calling from Liar's Shipping Service. We have an undeliverable package for Joe Blow, but need the correct shipping address, and stop speaking. Sometimes they'll say, who's it from? It's showing as mobile phone accessories. 9 out of 10 people at pretext will say, my address is boom, boom, boom. Then you go for, hey, can you just confirm your last name? I have it spelled as Ahearn. And so what I do is I misspell the name. Just in case you don't know, my name is spelled Ahearn. So the reason I misspelled the name, if they correct me, I know I'm on the right trail. Because what's the point of lying to me and then correcting me? So again, if you have the phone number, you do a package pretext, and you just might find who you're looking for. That is the no-brainer. Online and offline skip tracing. Got a bunch of things to say here, okay? So as a skip tracer, I think about a subject in two ways, okay? I hunt down their digital part and their physical part. This is very important, okay? Because in our new digital world, we can become virtual entities and have no connections to anything physical. We can live at a home, but the utilities are in somebody else's name. The cable can be somebody else's name. We can have a prepaid mobile. And we kind of can live like a ghost to a degree. Now, when I first started skip tracing, everything was offline. And the way we hunted someone was by their physical. Where did they live? Did they have a utility account? A utility pretext was very simple. Hey, my name is Joe Blow. I used to live at 10 Main Street. This is my date of birth. This is my social security number. Do I owe you guys any money? They put it in the system and say, no, Joe Blow, you don't owe any money. Hey, do you have a forwarding address? Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. If they did, they're like, yeah, we sent it to such and such street in New Orleans. Great, thank you. Hang up. I'd call the utility company down in New Orleans, do the same thing. If he's got utilities, great. So then I would work the skip from there. So that's an example of offline skip tracing. Online skip tracing, you type a person's name into Google, you might find the white page listing, whether it's up to date or not, who knows. You might find a Google page, you might find a Facebook page. But you find the Facebook page, it could be a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. What do? You target his friends. Those are the key. And a good skip tracer needs tools, which I'll talk about. And those tools are many Facebook pages, prepaid phones, a variety of email addresses, a variety of LinkedIn and social identities, fake social identities. So as we move forward, okay, and you're reading and you're listening to what I have to say, I want you to think about yourself. How are you digital and how are you physical? If you had no digital information out there, how could somebody find you physically? Or if you have no physical information like a lease, a car, a phone, or a mobile in your name, how could somebody find you digitally? Is your Facebook page a danger? Is your alumni page a danger? So think about it for yourself. A good skip tracer always thinks, how does it apply to me? How could I find myself? So, online skip tracing, offline skip tracing. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn here, privacy consultant and author of How to Disappear. I just want to talk about something called what I call going over the wall mentality. Okay, when you plan to disappear or create more privacy, it's really important to plan your actions. You just don't pick up and split and wing it. Now, going over the wall mentality is what prisoners do. They're in a cell, they want to break out of the cell, then they want to break out of the building, then they want to go over the wall. The problem is, once they're over the wall, they have no plan. They got no getaway plan, and they become scavengers. Okay? If you disappear and you go from A to B and you don't have a place where you're going to settle and you don't have a plan of how you're going to make money, what happens is you become a scavenger as well. And you have no organization and you don't have any proper communications created to the people of the past. You don't have any proper way of or secure way of accessing money. You don't have any secure way of earning income without being traced by your predator. So over the wall mentality is never a good thing. You never wing it, okay? When you're disappeared or vanished, the idea is to be your own privacy consultant, to be like Sun Tzu, to be like Machiavelli, to be like an individual who controls their future and not leave it to whatever happens, happens. Because I've encountered many people who have disappeared and vanished, and the next thing they get from point A to point B with a lump sum of money. They got 50, 70, 80, $100,000 saved, and it's 2 years come by and they're broke. And they never planned of what happens when the money runs out, or if something catastrophic takes place. So again, when you plan to disappear, avoid over the wall mentality, over the wall thinking. Over the wall, you're a scavenger. Pre-plan and disappear properly. That's my story. Have a great day. Frank M. Ahearn. Keep cool and keep low. Pretext and social engineering. They're basically the same thing. It's creating a ruse, picking up the phone, getting someone on the end of the phone, running your line, and trying to extract information. When I first started skip tracing and pretexting, we would pretext banks, phone companies, law enforcement, airlines, any hospitals, any kind of organization. It really didn't matter. We existed in this kind of like underground world of information. You had to know someone who knew someone to do business with me. So, a client would call me, like a private detective, say, listen, I have this phone number. I need to do a surveillance, or I need to serve papers on this person, but I don't have their address. So I would take that phone number and I would pose as a phone company employee, and I would just pick up the phone and say, hey, how you doing? This is Pat Brown from Bell Atlantic. Our systems are down. Just need you to bring up a phone number for current service. And some people or employees would be like, who are you? What are you? Where are you calling from? Pat Brown, Bell Atlantic Repair Dispatch. My ID number is EC622, and just need you to bring up this number. Need a customer name and address. And 9 times out of 10, the person on the other end of the phone would be Joe Blow, 10 Main Street, New York, New York. That's pretext, that simple. Now, the laws have changed drastically. You cannot pretext a phone company. It is against the law. You can't pretext banks. You can't pose as a person from a bank or a finance company. You can't pretext medical companies. So you have to be very careful if you decide that you're going to pretext, and look up the laws in your country or wherever you're sitting at and determine whether you can do this type of pretext. And I can tell you right now, you probably can't pretext a phone company or a bank. So, but information is still necessary for investigators to find people. So there are ways to legally pretext an individual to extract their information. So what I'm going to talk about as we go on are pretexts that will get you to the subject or the person you're looking for. On the flip side, it'll teach you when somebody calls you, don't give them any information, because it could be a skip tracer trying to extract information from you. So That's pretext, and that's social engineering. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant and author of How to Disappear. I'm going to take a few minutes and talk about pseudocide. Pseudocide is the act of faking your death. Once again, these are one of the really stupid things you do in the disappearing world. The problem with faking your death is most people, they do it by water. They figure it'll appear that they drowned, no body, death certificate will happen, law enforcement will think, oh, they're dead, let's go home, case closed. Sorry, it does not work that way. Most people who disappear, or most people who try to fake their death, they do it by water because of these very reasons. Now, law enforcement is not that stupid, okay? So keep that in mind. The other problem is, if you do fake your death, the news shows up, and you could be the biggest news story of the night, if not in the whole world. John Darwin from the UK fakes his death, and he became an international sensation. However, he got away with it, but then he came back to life, and it didn't work out very well for him. The other problem with faking your death is, how do you get from point A to point B? I mean, you gotta go from the beach, the boat, the ocean, wherever you faked your death at, to your new disappear land. I mean, you gotta stop in a hotel, you gotta drive, you gotta take a bus, a train, a plane. I mean, you gotta flash some identification. I mean, you gotta stop at a gas station for gas. You gotta go to a hotel. There's gonna be cameras all over the place. You're gonna be noticed. Most people who fake their death, they screw up when it comes to that point of getting from A to B. Don't fake your death, just disappear. That's my story for the day. Be cool. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant here. I'm going to take a minute and talk about purchasing a new identity or purchasing a fake identity. It's the stupidest thing you can do in the disappearing world. If you're not a criminal on the run, you do not need a fake identity. There are ways of living disappeared and not breaking the law. There are two types of identities. There is a flash identity, which is something you show at a hotel or something you show at a bank for some sort of identification. And then there's a real identity where you actually use as a driver's license or, to cross borders and customs. The problem with buying a fake identity is you give some guy $5,000 and he gives you what looks to be a passport or a driver's license. It has your photo, it has a fake name, it has a number to it. But the truth is, you don't know if it's just paper or if it's something that's actually in a computer system. So the question is, when do you test it out? Do you wait to get pulled over by a cop? Do you wait till you cross a border or try to get on a plane? That's just 50-50, and those odds are not good. So the other thing is, 10 people could be walking around with this identification, or the real person could be dead, in jail, wanted by law enforcement, or some other, stupid thing that gets you into trouble. So do not buy a fake identity. It is the stupidest thing you can do in the disappearing world. And that's all we got to say today. Say goodbye, Reggae. Reggae never wants to say goodbye. Catch you later. Stay cool and stay low. Skip tracers. What are skip tracers? Skip tracers find people. And they find people in all sorts of ways. There's no one way to skip trace. There are easier ways to skip trace. There are legal ways to skip trace, and then there are illegal ways to skip trace. Now, when I first started skip tracing in the mid-'80s, there was practically no laws to protect the privacy, or I should say maybe minimal laws, because we went into phone companies, banks, credit cards, law enforcement agencies. I mean, if there was a telephone and a computer that had information, I would pick up the phone and create a pretext. Hi, this is so-and-so from such and such department. So as a skip tracer, and trying to find people, social engineering came in very handy. And it was a great tool. But today, a skip tracer does not necessarily need to social engineer the old way or the illegal way. A skip tracer today can utilize database information, social networking sites, the internet, and the connections of the person they're looking for, whether it be family, because we can find information easily on somebody's brother, cousin, sister, alumni, voters registration. So there's so much information out there, we can extract that, whether it be popping onto Google or searching a database like TLO or People Finder or something of that nature. But one of the problems is that information is just information, and today there is an overload of it. I mean, you could do a database report on somebody at TLO and it could be 195 pages. I mean, you can't waste your time sifting through that information. So you need to know how to work a database. So some of the things I'm going to talk about is the easiest way to find people, plus how to pretext in a legal fashion to extract information from a person, as well as how to use databases. Because if you look at a person's database and there's 55 addresses, or there's 25 old phone numbers, or there's all these family connections, I mean, by the time you finish going through everything, you could spend days on it. So it's not worth doing it. So the idea here is, as a skip tracer, again, as I've said previously in another video, is don't think about the individual of where they're at. Don't focus on them. Let's work on their connections, and we chip away. Boom, boom, boom. Do we have an old phone number? Is there a forwarding address? Maybe if I pretext their parents, they know where the subject is. Okay, so as a skip tracer, or here, you're going to learn to become a skip tracer, and you're going to learn how to utilize databases, how to search through Facebook and pretext people on Facebook, how to pretext people using other social sites, how to create a website that can bring people to that website and extract their information. So skip tracers find people, and that's what you're going to learn to do, is how to find people. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. I'm going to talk about the 15-minute how to disappear. Now, this is a field manual I've been working on, kind of like a hip pocket notebook of how to disappear. So what I've been doing is just gathering the key elements, strategies, tactics, and things to know about disappearing. Now, technology changes all the time. The laws change all the time. Tricks, gimmicks, disinformation, how to travel. There's always this change in our society because of technology, okay? But there are key elements that always remain the same when it comes to disappearing. A is planning. How do you get from point A to point B? And the trick is you need to have a point A to B and then another B. And what I mean by that is, you can't just pick up and go from New York to LA if you're disappearing in LA. You need to get there in a discrete fashion. So the 15-minute how to disappear tells you or provides examples of how to create deception or travel deceptively. It also talks about how to create, quick deception to fool your predator. I also talk about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and, those things. And I still have mixed feelings about them because I think it's just a volatile place to put your money, because you can have $1 million this morning and $700,000 by the end of the day. The other problem is you can't access your funds really quick when it comes to digital currency, where if you have an ATM debit card, or you have a bank down the corner, you can walk in and pull out some cash. So there are certain elements to disappearing and vanishing that stay the same. So what I've done is I've collected the most important things, and it's pretty much an easy read, and I think it's probably one of the most helpful or the most structured or get to the point how to disappear writing I've done in a long time. So if you're interested, you can go to my website and pre-order. It'll be available sometime in the end of March. And that is the 15-minute how to disappear. And catch you later, and be cool. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. This week I'm going to talk about the 9 principles of vanishing. The first 3 happen to be accepting, ascertaining, and acting. But at the moment, I just want to share with you my thoughts on accepting. When you reach that point where you feel like you need to vanish, you have to ask yourself some serious questions. Number 1, is vanishing going to make your life better? Is it going to resolve your situation? Is it going to fulfill what you want to fulfill. Now, just because you have heavy duty debt and you vanish, the debt don't go away. You may need to return. So you have to ask yourself, great, if I vanish today, I'm gone a year, but I need to return, what state will my life be in? The other question you want to think about is your family and those who love you. John Darwin from the UK, he did something really horrible. He faked his death, and his children and grandchildren for years, had to live with the fact that their grandfather and father, drowned in the ocean. And it's a horrible thing to do to people. So are you prepared to do that to the people you love, that they're going to think you're just dead in a ditch somewhere? So these are hard questions you need to kind of answer and come to terms with. So think carefully. Now, again, vanishing is not always the answer. Ask yourself, if you're facing some hard legal issues, if you face the legal issues, will they be over in a year or 2 years? But if you pick up and go and make matters worse, that 1 or 2 years could be 4 or 5 years. So weigh the options. Don't just bolt. Take your finger off the panic button. So those are the things you want to think about. Once you reach that point where you accept what you're going to do and you're going to vanish, your next step is going to be ascertain. And then after ascertain, you're going to act. So today, think about the things you need to come to terms with and whether it's going to make your life better. That's my story. Stay cool and stay low. Frank M. Ahearn. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant. I'm going to continue talking about the 9 principles of vanishing. Now, there's accept, ascertain, act. Not in that particular order. I like to kind of talk about things in a disjointed way because I think sometimes A to B to C to D can get a little boring and monotonous. So I already spoke about accept, meaning you accept your fate and you gotta go. But before that happens, ascertain. Ascertain what you need to know. Okay, starting with, if I stay, what will happen in my life? Will I be killed? Will life get worse? Will I end up on the streets? If I go, will life get better? Can I better my future? Will I be safe? How will I resolve what's behind me? One of the mistakes people do when they disappear is they just go. And they don't think about, okay, I'm going to go, but is there any way of resolving the problem I'm leaving behind? Many people who find themselves in financial situations, they just go and they just burn the world behind them. And the problem with that is you don't know they don't know if 2 years from now, they got to go back. I mean, our lives change over continuously. I mean, you can get sick in Guatemala and be there for 2 years, have this great life, and all of a sudden you get sick, and you can't take care of yourself, and you may have no choice but to return. So think about, if you have to return, what are you returning to? Are you returning to a bunch of angry, burned people? If so, think about how you can vanish, but kind of resolve what you're leaving behind at the same time. When you go, ask yourself, how can I make my life better? Look, you can't be a dickhead in life and disappear and be a dickhead, because you're going to do dickhead things in your new life, and that's really going to get you nowhere. And you'll make the same old mistakes. So think about who you are as a person and kind of like look at the good and bad of you. And I don't mean this in a self-help sort of way, but more so, listen, if you tend to hang out at bars and drink too much and get into some problems, when you disappear, you can't be doing stuff like that. I mean, if you get involved with the wrong relationships, if you're a woman and you find yourself in precarious relationships, that could be a danger of the future. Same thing with men. I mean, you really have to think about who you are before you pick up and go. So you want to ascertain the facts about who you are as a person, what you need to change. You want to think about, okay, if you stay, what life is going to be like. If you go, what life is going to be like. Now, I can give you all the tools for disappearing. Do A, B, C, D, and E. But the truth is, only you can decide whether you should go or not. I can't tell you that. A book can't tell you that. A video can't tell you that. YouTube, Twitter, a blog, nobody. Only you can decide that. Last year, I worked with a client who was involved in a bad money deal and his life was in danger. He had a wife, 4 kids, and he tells me the situation. It's really, really precarious and dangerous. And he asked me if I think he should disappear. And I'm thinking, God, the writing's on the wall, dude. You best pick up, go now. But he was so afraid to change his life or make a decision because so many decisions the decisions he made led up to this bad scenario. So, and he was at the fork in his road. He just didn't know what to do. So you have to find the right decision within yourself. And the way to find the right decision is by asking yourself the hard questions. Ascertain what you need to know. Once you know it, then you act. You pick up and get out of Dodge. And that's my story for today. And I'll catch you later. Stay cool, stay low. And by the way, I'm giving an online class in February. If you check out my website at disappear.info, once again, disappear.info, you can learn more about the online class. And catch you later and have a good 2018. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. I've been talking about the 9 principles of vanishing. And I already spoke about ascertain, which is collecting the information you need to know to make the decision of whether you should disappear or stay and face the music. Then there's accepting, knowing you got to go, you got to get out of Dodge. So then naturally what happens is you act, you open the door and you leave. Now, in the act part of vanishing, you always want to think about freedom. Every step you take is towards freedom. So imagine when you're out there, you're going to face these obstacles, whether it be, do you take the bus or do you take the train? The question is, which leads to your freedom? I mean, they both do, but one might create more footprints and make you vulnerable. So think about what's behind the stumbling blocks. I mean, it's you liberating yourself from what you're leaving behind. So think when you make a decision about something, think about, is this going to make me free? Am I going to get what I need to get? Am I going to find what I want to find by going down this route? Because sometimes people cut corners, or sometimes they think, nobody's going to find this footprint, or, who's going to know this, who's going to know that. There's always a footprint in the wind somewhere. There's always danger lurking. You can never be complacent and think it's okay, or my predator is not going to find me if I do A or do B, in the sense of, you can't just throw caution to the wind. You have to be a warrior. You have to be your own strategist and say to yourself, if I go route A, is this the safest and most discreet way to go? If it's not, you need to rethink of a better route. I mean, you're not going to drive through a place where there's tons of toll booths and they're snapping photos of you. Why? Because you don't know your predator, whether they have a connection or they know somebody who could, search tolls or search, videos in bus stations. You don't know what kind of contacts they have. So you always have to assume that your predator has the most amazing contacts, that they will break the law. So when you act with prudence, okay? And you are cautious to your environment. Now, what you need to think about is your physical and your digital, okay? There's the physical space around you that you could see. There's the people you encounter. There are the cars that pass you by, the stores you go in. They all make you vulnerable because you never know who's in the store, around the corner, on the bus, on the train, or in the airport. But that's the physical part. There's the digital part, the thing we don't see, the thing we forget about. It's the camera, the eye in the sky. It's us using a debit card, a prepaid debit card, and forgetting about that there's a camera behind the counter, or using a prepaid debit card that's not secure, that may connect to us. So when you do things like that, it reduces your freedom. So When you act and everything you do, you ask yourself, will this lead to my freedom? If it does, you go that direction. If it doesn't, you find a new road to freedom. And that's basically my story of the day. And be cool and stay low. Later. Hey, Frank Ahearn, privacy consultant and author of How to Disappear. Today I just want to talk about to tell or not to tell. And this is a question that comes up in the mix all the time. When individuals contact me, they ask, should they tell anybody they're disappearing? Now, that's a serious issue to consider. One of the problems is if you don't tell someone you're disappearing, someone can go to the police and report you as a missing person, and then the next thing you know, you end up on the nightly news and then the national news, and who knows, you could become headlines. If you do tell someone you're disappearing, they could then accidentally tell a skip tracer or your predator without knowing that they're really disclosing the information. So you have to kind of weigh the options. I mean, if you're a victim of a stalker or if your life is in jeopardy, it's good to tell one close person, but what you don't do is you don't disclose where you're going. So if you're going to Lisbon, you tell them you're going to Brussels. Your location has to stay close to you within your own world. That's the circle you create. So, another thing to consider is if you do tell someone you are disappearing, the problem is they might tell another person who might tell another person. And so you have to judge your timing, okay? You don't want to tell them a month beforehand because that could risk your exit plan. Meaning the day you go to disappear, your predator could show up at the door or your predator gets wind of it. So how you tell someone and what you tell them exactly is a delicate situation. And I don't have the exact answer for that. That is something you need to decide and who you can trust in your world, okay? So before you go, think about this. Who in your world can you share the secret with? Is there anybody in this world you can share your secret with? Or maybe one of the situations you can do is after you pick up and disappear is contact a friend, in the most discreet fashion, meaning, pick up a burner phone that you use only once to call that friend and explain your situation in full, and then just dump that burner phone. Tell them you'll be in touch every month or every 2 months or something like that, so they know you're okay. Because again, one of the problems is people who disappear or people who go missing, they become like this interesting story, and media covers it. People chat about it, people blog about it, people write about it, and next thing you know, you're tucked away in Des Moines, Iowa, and you're watching the news, and there you are on Channel 5 News, and you got some problems. So think carefully about to tell or not to tell. But again, don't tell where, don't tell details, and don't tell, in my opinion, don't tell necessarily before you go. Wait till you're out of the house and wait till you're out of Dodge. So that's my story today. Good luck, stay cool, stay low. Frank M. Ahearn. Hey, Frank M. Ahearn, privacy consultant. Lately, I've been talking about the 9 principles of vanishing. Previously, I've mentioned ascertain, accept, and act. These are things you should do before you pick up and disappear. The truth is, there are no 9 principles of vanishing. And the reason I say that, or the reason why I introduced that is, there's a lot of books online. After I wrote How to Disappear, a slew of disappear books came out, and I breezed through a lot of them, read some, breezed through. And the problem is, there are all these formulaic ways of disappearing, and the derivatives of how to disappear, and they're A to B to C to D. And the truth is, when it comes to vanishing, there is no one way of doing it, and no one book is going to tell you how to vanish forever. I mean, you might pick up some tidbits here and there, but the truth of the matter is, you planning your privacy and planning your disappearance need to figure out what works for you. And the idea that I introduced 9 principles of vanishing is just mumbo jumbo, okay? It's not really going to help you in your cause. Now, that's not to say that information you find in books is not realistic. What it is to say is that the idea of self-help that, give you information like the 5 principles of this, or, the 10 best ways to vanish or disappear, or, 9 keys to privacy, it's a load of crap. Okay. If you want to disappear and vanish properly, okay, you need to educate yourself on you and who you are, okay, and what your means are, what you need, okay, what you need to do to get out of your situation. And also, you need to look at your flaws. Who are you as a person, okay? Because you can't be, Johnny Dickhead in Miami and then disappear to Belgium and be Johnny Dickhead in Belgium. Why? Because your dickheadedness will catch up with you. So sometimes you need to look internally about you. What's going on with you? What's going on in your life? Why do you need to disappear? Is there something about you that brought you to this precipice? And if so, that's something you need to think about. So, the 9 principles of vanishing, or the idea of 9 principles of vanishing, were to just introduce these structures to you. Okay. And that's what a lot of books do. They introduce these structures. Okay. You need to delete all your footprints. You need to get an offshore bank account. You need to wear a mustache and glasses. They tell you all this extraneous stuff, but none of them talk about you and, your faults and what you need to figure out about you. So what I want you to think about is not so much the tools of vanishing or the tools of disappearing, because disappearing is like relocating. It's going from A to B. The only difference is you just want to make sure nobody can find you in B. So think more so about you and what your space is in the world, or in this new world, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're banking offshore or using a prepaid debit card, because if you're making the same old mistakes from the past, it's just going to catch up with you. So there are no 9 principles to vanishing. Even my book, How to Disappear, erase your digital footprints and vanish without a trace. I was not happy about that title. I just wanted How to Disappear. But the publishers were like, no, you need a subtitle, you need a promise, and all this crap. And I'm thinking, but you can't delete your digital footprints, and nobody can vanish without a trace. But I had no say in this. So a lot of times when you're looking to research online, you're looking for books, it's the titles that catch you. Now, and most of those titles make promises that just don't happen, okay? Because we live in a world all about interconnectedness, okay? If you do A, it's somehow connected to B. And so the 9 principles of vanishing are not going to teach you that. What's going to teach you is your actions, what you do daily, how you interact with the world around you. And so before you buy books, before you take advice from even someone like me, think the information through and ask yourself, does it apply to you? Okay, does this make sense? I mean, there's a wiki page about disappearing, and it's like the stupidest thing in the world. This guy talks about putting a thumbtack in your shoe and walking funny, and, there are books out there, how to get a new identity. Okay, you buy a new identity, you don't know what you're buying. I mean, you could be buying an identity that belongs to 10 people, or you could be buying an identity where the ID number is not valid. What do? You wait till you get pulled over by a cop driving and they check the ID? Or do you wait to go through customs and try to flash a passport? I mean, that's just going to get you locked up. That's not disappearing. Disappearing is always about freedom, okay? It's about waking up in the morning and not allowing the past to catch up with you. And it's about being a sovereign individual to a degree. It's a Zen. It's building a new life. It's building a protected life. It's moving forward. It's not starting your new life with breaking the law and, offshore banking illegally, or getting a fake identification. So my purpose in this whole 9 principles of vanishing was to kind of just lead you in and now just introduce the idea that don't believe in the formulas, believe in you. Okay, pick and choose. Don't believe in the titles of the book, don't believe in the subtitles, don't believe in the promises. And that's my story. Have a good day. Hey, Frank, I'm Ahearn, privacy consultant. I want to talk about how to disappear / detect or counter surveillance. Now, when you first plan your disappearance, you need to stop everything, okay? That's how to disappear / stop, okay? Because you've created a boatload of footprints. Disappearing begins with a dream, or wondering what it's like, or how much it costs to live in Lisbon, or what airfare is to a particular city, or how to open a bank account in Germany. So the initial disappearing part is always that dream or that initial research, and typically it's done from the home, work, or the mobile phone, and you've created a bunch of footprints, and those footprints will bring you down. But if you want to learn more about how to disappear stop, look up the how to disappear stop video. So I want to talk about how to disappear, detect, or counter surveillance. Now, when you plan your disappearance, or as you start moving along after you stop everything, you have to think about your world. Okay, what's happening in your physical space? I mean, is your mobile phone cloned? Is there keystroke software on your computer or laptop? I mean, is the room you're in bugged? I mean, what about your car? Is there a GPS tracking device? What you need to do is you need to assume that everything about your world is compromised, okay? And you need to start fresh. You need a clean phone, you need a clean laptop, you need prepaid mobile phones, maybe I just said that, prepaid debit cards. So you want to start gathering things that have no connection to your old life, okay? The keyword connections, okay? So you can't operate and plan your disappearance in your home, okay? Because especially if you live with your predator, because you don't know what kind of access they have. I mean, if you're in an abusive situation, you need to get out of your house and go elsewhere. But the thing is, you can't jump in your car and drive to an internet cafe because there could be GPS in your car. You can't hold your everyday mobile phone in your bag and go to that internet cafe or to your friend's house because of the tracking devices. So you have to leave all your hardware, let's call it, behind. So the strategy is to say, okay, I'm going to do some searching today. I'm going to hop in my car. I'm going to drive to the mall. I'm going to leave my phone and anything that has an on and off switch in my car. I'm going to get out of my car. I'm going to walk through the mall, and I'm either going to hop in a taxi, pay cash, or I'm going to walk for 15 blocks and find a place to surf. Internet cafes are not always the safest place because they keep records of everything, okay? But let's say you have a mail drop and you stash your computer in there, or you stash your mobile phone in there. You go to the mail drop, you open it up, take out your smartphone, you go somewhere, you sit down, you do your searching on that, you do what you need to do, you go back to the mail drop, you leave your phone behind. You walk back to your car, you jump in your car, you go home. From a digital tracking perspective, it looks like you spent the day in the mall. As simple as that. So, when you plan your disappearance, think about your environment. The eye in the sky, perhaps a bug in the room that you don't hear. If you're driving in your car, don't be on the phone talking to somebody about disappearing to, God knows where, because your car could be bugged. So you have to operate that everything is compromised, that everything about you is known. So the trick is to be smarter than your predator, okay? And to think before you do. So that means don't take any chances. But on your laptop at home and your regular mobile phone, what you can do is search places online you're never going to go and use it as disinformation. Assume your car has a GPS tracking device, drive to places and park in front of a bank, okay? Go to an apartment building that has a complex that has nothing to do with you. It may appear that from the GPS device, they're going to wonder, why did you go to that bank? Why did you go to that building? What's going on with you? So what you want to do is use the potential intrusion as disinformation. And it's kind of the story of the day. Just to let you know, I'm writing a book called The 15-Minute How to Disappear. And it's almost like a pocket manual of disappearing, something you have in your pocket. It's quick reference. It's not a bunch of stories. It's straight to the point, how-tos. And the how-tos are about, cryptocurrency, new identities, fake identities, disinformation, and more so modern and up-to-date information about disappearing. And it's a rather easy read. So you can pre-order it on Amazon if you like. That's my story. Be cool and be low. So where's the information out there that you use to find someone? It's everywhere. It's online, it's offline. Offline, it's mobile phone companies, telephone companies, cable companies, utility companies, credit card companies, banks. But you can't contact those people. You can't pretext them. But it's online. It's in databases. It's in Facebook. It's in LinkedIn. It's in Google. It's in other people's information. Now, when you're looking for someone, what you're doing is you're not searching for them. You're searching for that one piece of information. So, where is that information? Is it a posting in Facebook? Not by the subject, but maybe by their brother, their sister, their cousin. I mean, is it an old LinkedIn page that has an employment from a year ago, and you can then contact that employer and pretext them? Hey, how you doing? This is Pat Brown. I'm calling from such and such shipping company. We have an undeliverable package for Joe Blow. The employer's gonna say, well, he doesn't work here anymore. Ah, geez, it's showing us medical supplies. Any idea where we could forward it to? Now, they're gonna think medical supplies, maybe it's important. Hang on, let me see if I got a forwarding address or an old phone number. That's skip tracing. That's where the information is. You went from LinkedIn to the employer to possible old phone number, current number, or forwarding address. So one of the things about being a skip tracer is to ask yourself, where's the information? Okay, what's out there? One time I was looking for someone and I couldn't find them to save my life. So everywhere I looked, utilities, cable, phone, there was nothing. I mean, he seemed like an orphan and had no family. So one day I went back to the client and I said, hey, tell me about this guy. And my client says, Frank, he is a car buff. He loves like 1950s cars. And so I thought to myself, I bet you he's got a subscription. So sure enough, I start calling subscription companies and boom, 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 fifth or sixth call, somebody says, hey, Mr. Jones, we forwarded your new magazine subscription to P.O. Box 7 in, Cobb County, Georgia. Bingo. It's a score. There's no rhyme or reason to skip tracing, and there's never any right or wrong way. There's illegal ways, and there's dangerous ways, but there's really no right or wrong way or wrong information to utilize, because it might be that one piece that brings you where you want to go. So when you're skip tracing, ask yourself, where is this person's information? And typically, that starts with your information. Where's your information? Are you a member of a bowling team? Where do you stream videos from? Do you have memberships to an alumni? Do you have memberships to the Democrat or Republican Party? Do you have donations? Look up their donations. So again, information, where is it? It's online and it's offline. Offline is physical, family, friends, old employment. Online is social, database. So think online, offline is where it's at.